Let's shift our focus now to Togo, where Togolese opposition official has said he does not wish for a Burkina Faso-style popular uprising in Togo. But Secretary General of the main opposition National Alliance for Change party, Kujo Delava, said if President Faure Gnassingbé continues to refuse to implement political reforms that will lead to a presidential term limit and free and fair elections, then a Burkina Faso-style popular uprising might happen. Delava said the protesters want a return to the 1992 constitution, which called for a two-presidential term limit, but which was removed by President Gnassingbé's father, General Gnassingbé Eyadema. Delava said following the 2005 disputed election, President Gnassingbé and the opposition reached an agreement which called for institutional and political changes to facilitate free and fair election in Togo. But he said President Gnassingbé has failed to implement the reforms stipulated in that agreement. According to him, Togolese want a return to the 1992 constitution because elections in Togo have never been fair. Secretary General of the main opposition National Alliance for Change also said Togo is the only country in West Africa where there is no presidential term limit. Staying a bit more on the Togo issue, I have been joined online by Erbad Ibrahim. He is an international news and security analyst. Thanks so much, Erbad.
You're most welcome, my sister.
Right. We also have Dr. Vladimir Enchidan. So he is a senior research fellow, Lagos Center for International Affairs and Diplomacy. Thank you so much, Doctor, for joining us here once again on News Desk.
You're very welcome, and good morning to your listeners.
Thank you, Doc. All right, so let's quickly hit it. Following the 2005 disputed election, President Gnassingbé and the opposition reached an agreement. That deal called for institutional and political changes to facilitate free and fair election in Togo. Is Togo sitting on a time bomb? Let me start with you, Dr. Enchidanso.
Well, somehow it's not only Togo, but a lot of the African countries are all sitting on time bombs because democracy is badly hiccuping in Africa. But basically, the Togolese situation is very unfortunate, and I blame the ECOWAS and I blame the AU for all that is happening in Togo. The quasi-arrangements that were made in order to bring back Gnassingbé Eyadema in 2005 was unfortunate. And anytime we have a situation like that, we say we don't recognize what we have done. We sanctions on you, etc. Then we go back to make arrangements that bring back the same old problem. Since then, has ECOWAS or the AU been able to help to bring about those institutional changes and constitutional changes necessary for cementing democracy? No. In 2012, there were similar protests ahead of the parliamentary elections. What did ECOWAS do? What did ECOWAS say? And what did the AU say? Are we waiting for a situation like Burkina Faso before we say we don't recognize you, like it happened in Guinea and it happened in Mali? You know, these are the situations. When democracy is hiccuping somewhere, the regional bodies must take interest rather than invoke their protocols when the things have come already. The Togolese constitution is a bad constitution. It has no term limit. And the situation is such that Gnassingbé Eyadema and his party would always win. If you put all the 28 or more parties in Togo together, their vote would never be more than the RCP would win. So this is the situation, and watchers of Africa, you know, the researchers have been pointing this thing out, but the regional bodies are not saying anything.
Let me ask the same question to, let me give the same question to Erbad. Do you think Togo is sitting on a time bomb?
Saif al-Islam to take over as the leader of the country. And currently, Mugabe too is preparing his wife, even though that is quite unfortunate, to take over the reins of the government in the inevitable eventuality that he lives by at the end of the day. So therefore, I believe ECOWAS was quite aloof for 38 solid years, right from 67, when Iyadema was ruling the country with an iron fist. And the irony of this smites you in the face. Only a week ago, Foreign Yasingbe was in this country. He was, I wouldn't say gallivanting, but he was taking a comfortable tour with our president, who is current chair of ECOWAS. So if, as people, we aren't able to tell other heads of state the truth, so that democratic legitimacy that has been indicated by DOC will always be upheld. And I believe so that reactive measures would be just like shutting the stable door after the horse has bolted. So I think the writings are on the wall for Faure and his cohorts to see. People power is the order of the day currently, and therefore you should do the bidding of the people, or else you'll smile on the negative side of your mouth.
Okay, so let me come back to you, Dr. Entridan. So with the Secretary General of the main opposition National Alliance for Change Party, Kojo Delava, says Togolese want a return to the 1992 constitution as elections in Togo have never been fair. Can that be achieved?
Well, that's also asking for too much. What is needed in Togo right now is a consensus on the future of Togo. What kind of constitution? Because we need a kind of social contract that will satisfy all the players. But just demand a return to some other constitutional order and that kind of thing will bring opposition from the government side. And so what is needed now is that the very regional body, especially ECOWAS, which would, if Nasingbe is ousted today, I bet ECOWAS will tell you they don't recognize who ousted the person. But why would they wait? So this is the time that they must use all efforts. This is the time AU must use the panel of the wise, to be able to start talks that will generate the necessary atmosphere for constitutional changes. We don't have to wait. Constitutional changes are needed in Togo, whether we like it or not.
Let's also look at it this way, where they seem to have no term limit in terms of presidency, presidential term limit. They don't have that. But how can that, if not addressed, affect the country's future?
It can easily be addressed, because in Ghana we have started some constitutional reform processes. The commission has toured the whole of the country. They're preparing what minds of the people say. So at least even the government doesn't like it, the government has seen those loopholes where the people say this is what we want. And it's a good start. It's a very, very good start. Can't the Togolese be held to also, one way or the other, what is the NEPAD doing? The whole thing is said that we are always reactive, and that is my worry. And ordinary people are the ones who are going to suffer. They're going to die. They are going to go to the street. Does it make sense? For me, this is the time to start jaw-jawing, start talking about the Togolese constitution, which is bad. In a year, they are going for the polls again. If Nasingbe should stand, I tell you there will be protests. There will be, even though he has every right to, because the constitution doesn't bar him from doing so. But people are fed up with him one way or the other, or people are seeing that, look, this is unfair. Whether they are right or not does not matter. The real matter is, can we constitutionally say that we love our constitution, we believe in it, and we have institutions under the constitution in whom we have trust? The police, the military, the judiciary, and all those things. If people move their trust away from these institutions, that is when there is chaos. That is when there is conflict. So this is the time to help Togo talk to Nasingbe to be able to understand that there is need for change, because democracy is about people. It's not about what you think the people need. It's about what the people think they need.
Let me quickly come to you, Bad. Do you also think the opposition is, Delava Kudu is asking for too much, asking for the return to the 1992 constitution?
I think the opposition has thrown down the gauntlet, and sometimes if you ask for a whisper, what you get is a huge cry. Therefore, I think it's a step in the right direction that whatever the provisions of a constitution are, the constitution is meant to serve the interests of the people. So therefore, if they think that with the current changing trends of democracy or governance within the sub-region, they don't want the monotony or the incompetence of a man who has become president only because he was considered heir apparent when his father was deceased. It means that they should ask for the best. And they say if you want to hit the moon, you target the star. You target the sun. If you don't get it, at least you'll get a star. So therefore, I think the opposition forces are now beginning to gather momentum. All this while, a semblance of a multi-party system has been created in what is truly a dictatorial regime in the country. So I believe so that they're voting up and they've begun to smell the coffee, and they would want to change. So asking for democracy is not too much. I believe so. So therefore, I believe so well that just as Doc has indicated, the time has come for ECOWAS to stamp its authority, enter into the fray, and make sure level heads prevail. But the point is, you are dealing with a regional bloc that is a toothless bulldog. It talks big, but does very little. I'll give you a case in point. When the Boko Haram issue reached a head a few months ago with the abduction of the Chibok girls, our leaders met and they said they were going to have a provisional force of some 3,000 soldiers on standby to help Nigeria. Up till now, they've not gone back to that discussion again. So we only wait for the bubble to burst. Then we hold emergency meetings. Then we shelve the resolutions of such meetings. So I'm on the same page quite perfectly with the doctor that if care is not taken, then this will spiral out of control and there will be a rehash of what we saw on the streets of Ouagadougou in Lomé.
I see. Very loaded there. But I'll come back to you. But let me quickly go to Dr. Enchidan. So you made mention that ECOWAS must act. What exactly should ECOWAS be doing now?
ECOWAS, especially the head, who incidentally is our president, should start using the hotline and starting to talk to the president of Togo. ECOWAS, as a group also, must start discussing Togo. They must start discussing any of the hotspots and ask peacefully for constitutional changes that are necessary so that there will be peace. After all, what we are all looking for is a subcontinent which is peaceful. Without that, the strive towards integration is a nullity. And so all we need is the instability within the sub-region must go away. And if that is the case, if there are semblances of insecurity, what you do is to step in. So the world has now moved away from what we call non-interference to non-indifference. Non-interference is like now, if our president wants to talk to Nasingwe, then it means we are interfering. No. Today, we call it non-indifference. We cannot sit and show indifference when something is going to go wrong and will affect the whole of the region. It is very easy to talk to people this way and to copy from Ghana what keeps our democracy going. No, we are not saying Ghana's democracy is the best. But what we're saying is that at least the George oil in Ghana helps to keep some semblance of stability. In Togo, this is not there.
You know, we have Olympio, a leading member of the opposition, part of the current government, and that opposition actually tends to stay silent once they are tasting a piece of the cake. That is government. Is that what is really happening in Togo?
The point is, it's very interesting. When Nasingwe was here and he was asked whether he would run for another term, said the people of Togo would decide. And he pointed to Olympio, the presence of Olympio in his team to show that, I mean, it's a kind of showcasing how peaceful Togo is and the opposition are with him. This is politics. In politics, you get what is feasible, not what is ideal. And if Olympio is so tired and he wants to join government, it's so be it. I mean, it happens. People just somersault all the time, one way or the other. Olympio is very silent, yes. I'm not worried about that. But the rest of the opposition, I can't count the number of parties we have in Togo. In the last election, you saw more than 28 parties vying for positions and things like that. if the main opposition just gets onto the street. One Olympia is nobody. Yes, he has been in the limelight and that kind of thing. The very fact that he might be hobnobbing with the president does not necessarily mean that the whole of the opposition thinks that that is the case. I want a situation where the constitution is a Togolese constitution. It's a constitution which everybody will be proud of. The headwaters of the social contract that clearly defines how Togo should be run, not who should rule Togo. How should Togo be run is the case now. And if we don't go by that, I tell you the hiccuping nature of the situation over there since 2005 is not going to go away.
Let me go to Ebert. You call ECOWAS a toothless bulldog. Does it mean it's hopeless with them? There's nothing they can do to help?
I think the situation is salvageable. It's not all gloom and doom. But I'm a bit disappointed with the diluted posturing of Olympio. The fact that he is partaking in the government may not be necessarily interpreted as an acquiescence with the status quo, but certainly his conscience has been compromised. This is standard practice with all dictators across the world. Where you have the stiffest opposition, you buy the person over. But that notwithstanding, being the leader of an opposition does not mean you reflect the aspirations of the people entirely. So if you've decided to soften your stance, then it tells you that perhaps you will not be able to rope in other people. Most of the people who are calling for regime change or a change in the status quo are people who do not directly benefit from politics. Ordinary, regular, everyday people, students, peasants, cobblers, medical doctors, journalists like you and all that, who feel like to keep up with the Joneses in our current times, I should do things the way things are done elsewhere. And democracy is the way to go. People are tired of having one person at the helm of affairs for decades. And the writings are there boldly written on the wall for everybody to see. So therefore, I think ECOWAS should step in as much as possible. The issue of respecting the sovereignty and territorial integrity of member states does not mean we should sit aloof and adopt a hands-off approach as instability is lurking in the background. So as much as possible, we are still waiting for a time when within ECOWAS we will have leaders that will be frank with one another and tell one another the truth. Where somebody wants to tinker with the Constitution and be a president for life, there should be voices of conscience within the corridors of ECOWAS. To tell those people in the face that you should give way. Longevity does not necessarily translate into national development, and therefore the wishes of the people should be done at all times. And this shouldn't be too much of a demand of ECOWAS. That has been in existence for quite some time, and regional integration is key. We have so many issues on the menu. The issue of a common currency, the issue of a mammoth project that will traverse a couple of countries on the within the sub-region with the rail line systems and all that. So if there is no democracy and stability, at the end of the day, all of these will just be ink on paper, and they will never be they will never materialize. So therefore, ECOWAS should up its game. It's not all lost. For as long as we have the needed mechanisms and the institutions within ECOWAS, we just need to strengthen and consolidate those institutions, because all the people of the world now feel emboldened. The prequel was what we saw in the case of the Arab Spring. Some have already christened what has happened in Burkina Faso as the commencement of a possible Black Spring. So we wait to see how things pan out. And 2015 will be quite dicey for dictators on the continent, because a couple of such countries are going to the polls. And people are watching what is happening in other jurisdictions. So therefore, they will not accept the current incompetent, longevity there is dotted across the continent. So ECOWAS, the people within the country, I always keep reiterating this point. The best people to solve Togolese problems are the Togolese themselves. So ECOWAS can give them the needed nudge. But I believe that moving forward, there should be a national conference of dialogue about the Constitution and the way forward, so that all people of different colors and shapes, the traditional bodies, the civil society organizations, the political parties, and all stakeholders will have a say in this issue of a term limit, so that we don't see a repeat of what has happened elsewhere pan out before our own eyes in Togo.
Let me come to you, Dr. Enchidan. So civil society has also been leading protests. Aside the protests, what do you think they should also be doing now?
Come again. There was,
okay, so civil society has also been leading protests, and aside the protests, what do you think they should do?
In actual fact, they should be able to know exactly what they want. In most instances like this, there is what is normally called in political balance or autocracy. People think they just go to the street and get the government out. The anger towards the government is what is the biggest concern. I believe this is the time to be more up to the task. Systematically draw up programs that will end up in getting exactly what they want. They want constitutional change. They must put their eye on the constitutional change. They must be able to have knowledgeable people who draft what they really want and put them straight away on a trail that will end up in exactly what they want. But just to go onto the street, get beaten, get killed, and whatnot, you gain nothing, because you then incur even the wrath of those very people you are protecting or protesting for. So my advice to civil society, especially, is that they now have to be able to at least, in clear terms, know what they want, in clear terms, strategize, in clear terms, make their operations get the necessary results. Without that, you just get to the streets, get beaten. Exactly in 2000, was it 1990, from 1998 onwards, the very things that happened. 1990, the very things that happened, and the Ayadima still remained, and that kind of thing. Many more people will just be killed. So this is the time for strategy, for tactics, for operations that will really bring about the necessary results for deeper constitutional changes and for the strengthening of democracy in Togo.
I think, can you hear me, please?
Yes, I can hear you.
I think it may not be necessarily the desire of certain people to front the streets. But when you look at the patchwork of regime changes on the continent and elsewhere, it's been proven that the only language some of these, sit-tight leaders understand is the language of violence, quite unfortunately. So the people have found in the bosom of radicalism and vandalism solace in seeking change. And the burning down of the Burkinabe Parliament House was quite despicable, and it was quite condemnable by all. But that's notwithstanding, I believe so well that a lot of things have been taking place under the surface. People would want to open up the Pandora's box for the debate on constitutionality, democracy, and all that. But they're always muffled and muzzled. And therefore, when pent-up feelings of frustration and disenchantment with the status quo are bottled up for too long, you can't help but have them explode. And their explosion comes with the ramification of, the rampage and the, street protests we see. But that is not ideal, just as Doc has indicated. But these leaders should also create an avenue for the political debate to take place. Many people have asked, with the level of economic constraints in this country, why is it that we are not seeing the magnitude of protests that are taking place elsewhere? I've always indicated a human being is a gregarious species. And therefore, for as long as you give the person the freedom of expression, if you can't even get the best, at the end of the day, you're able to ventilate your anger and your chagrin with the status quo. But that is not the case in Togo and other countries. There is no freedom of expression. Their reportage in the media and TV stations and on radio are quite lopsided in favor of those in officialdom. So it becomes very difficult. And the U.S. and other countries have also had a surreptitious way of helping civil society organizations to mobilize people. Currently, what is happening in Hong Kong could not have happened in the vacuum. So sometimes civil society organizations get financial support from certain external powers to have the wherewithal and needed acumen to mobilize people for such mass protests. But it's been indicated since the beginning of the Arab Spring that leaders will not budge, especially dictatorial ones, until tens of thousands of people front the streets.
So please don't go yet. Hold on briefly for me. I'd like us to go to Nigeria and quickly take a look at what is happening there. So let me quickly take you to Nigeria, where residents of the capital of Nigeria's Yobe State said a suspected Boko Haram attack on their town targeted police. Heavily armed men attacked Damaturu early Monday with explosions and gunfire. residents, including Yobe State University students, are hiding in the bush outside of the northern Nigerian town. Meanwhile, on Friday, attack hit Kano's Central Mosque. More than 100 people died in an attack. So Kano's Central Mosque, where the attack took place, is where the influential Muslim leader, the Emir of Kano, usually leads prayers. Emir Muhammad Sanusi had recently called for people to arm themselves against Boko Haram, and there have been suggestions that the attack was in response to that call. Let me come back to you, Dr. Fidan. So will you say the Kano attack was targeted at the Emir of Kano over his recent calls for people to take up arms against Boko Haram?
Well, in any case, I mean, terrorism, one way or the other, or the terrorist is always like the starfish. The harder you hit, the more robust it becomes. And in the Boko Haram issue, any action any action has its own reaction. And so you would realize that earlier on, Sanusi had made a different statement. And when he saw that the situation was deteriorating, he asked people to arm themselves, form their own vigilantes, which I think, if you ask me, it's not improper. It's a right thing because people need to come together and defend themselves while the government comes in one way or the other, because one way or the other, the government is not doing much. The whole of the North now virtually is in the hands of Boko Haram. And I believe several other Boko Haram-like organizations may spring up before they coalesce and join the Boko Haram proper. And that's how the terrorists work. And so basically right now, yes, whatever Sanusi would say would have a reaction from the Haramis, whether we like it or not. And therefore, what he said is also sending some signals to the Boko Haram people that, look, now people are going to harm themselves. Let's put more terror. Let's put more fear. Let the people know that nobody can save them one way or the other. And that's what is happening actually up there in the northern part of Nigeria.
Abba, do you also agree with Doc, or you have a different opinion?
I'm on the same wavelength with Doc. For those of us who have been critically looking at what is happening and speak the language that is spoken by Boko Haram, we know so well that many Hausa-speaking clerics who have openly, shown, resentment with what Boko Haram is carrying out, have been killed. You can talk of a great sheikh we have in the northern part of the country called Sheikh Jafar, one of the best the continent had. When he spoke against Boko Haram, he was killed. Then a few months ago, another sheikh, Sheikh Albani Zaria, was also killed. So when Sanusi Lamido, who only became the emir of Kano in June, made the call last week at the same mosque that was bombed, I gave a few interviews and I told them, well, in issues of counterterrorism, those who speak up, especially those with traction in society, should expect a backlash that will ricochet to them. So therefore, I believe he was only saved by faith, because at that moment he had gone to Saudi Arabia. Apart from the Hajj we have in Islam, there is another minor Hajj ritual. We call it Umrah. Anybody who has the financial capability can embark on that at any moment in time within the year. So he was only saved by the fact that he was absent when the attack took place. So that tells you that Nigeria faces a very serious challenge. I've had occasion to discuss the issues with certain foreign interests, those who have a stake in what is happening within the sub-region. And the main challenge has been to get one single prominent Muslim to come out and disavow the rhetoric and the narrative of Boko Haram. So therefore, I think Sanusi Lamido was hearkening to the call of those, power brokers who have got an interest. And by now, I'm sure he would have butterflies in his panties, will be quivering, even though he went to the site of the attack and then gave a defiant speech that he would continue on the trajectory of calling on Nigerians to stand up against Boko Haram. I believe so well that he will not have the needed exuberance to lambast Boko Haram in public. And that is exactly what Boko Haram is looking for. They have, made people believe in the warped interpretation of the Quran they have, making it a draconian and puritanical religion that has no tolerance whatsoever for people of either faith. And therefore, they wouldn't want any cleric or Muslim leader like the Emir of Kano, who is the second most authoritative Muslim voice in the country after the Sultan of Sokoto. They wouldn't want such people to be speaking against what they are doing. And Gladys, it also, points to the fact that this insurgency has been accentuated and trumpeted as an Islamic trend has also flown in the face of the evidence we have. These were Muslims that were worshipping in a mosque, a central mosque in one of the largest cities in the north of the country. Many of the people who became scholars in Ghana had, at a point in time, to go to Kano and study and come back and preach in this country. So those were Muslims that have been massacred in their hundreds. So therefore, we keep reiterating that Boko Haram does not represent Islam. They are people that do not belong to the mainstream because they accuse us others of apostasy and heresy, which is condemnable based upon the jurisprudence of the religion. And it's not like we are ignorant about the teachings of the religion.
Yeah.
We know the Quran. We've read the Quran from cover to cover. We've read all the books of Islam, and we know so well that the arbitrary killing of innocent people is irrational and it's not part of the faith. So I would want to add my voice to what Doc has indicated, that governments may not necessarily be able to provide the much-needed security in the northeast of the country. The Nigerian forces are stretched thin. This attack took place in Kano, and within the wee hours of today, they attacked the capital of Adamawa State, Damaturu, Yobe State, Damaturu. Yeah. So that tells you that they want to stretch the Nigerian security forces' strength. And there are so many parts of the country that have been left to the vagaries of Boko Haram insurgents. Because one, the political will is not there. Number two, the needed technical know-how is not there to fight an insurgency. And the Americans and other Western powers have only provided lip service to the fight against Boko Haram, because the track record we have of human rights violations, the rounding up of hundreds of young men who are of fighting age but do not necessarily ascribe to the visions of Boko Haram, and the summary execution of those people. Amnesty International cannot accept such summary executions. The international community cannot help such a Nigerian force with no morality to continue using the ammunition and artillery and then weapons that will be provided to continue killing innocent people. That is why there has been a half-baked commitment from the international community to get overboard in its assistance of Nigeria. So therefore, Goodluck Jonathan and others should come clean. They should have respect for human rights. They should learn that counterterrorism does not mean rounding up people and then shooting them. Some of the footage we have is quite nauseating. You just can't watch them. Cripples that have been shot at, blank point range, women that have been incarcerated for no reason whatsoever. So it becomes very difficult, and you are just pushing the youth into the hands of Boko Haram. Because whoever you kill is a brother to somebody and a cousin to another person. Exactly. Whoever you imprison without any reason is also a relative to another person. That is why this guy feels emboldened. The current leader of Boko Haram, Abubakar Shekau, his demeanor shows that he feels like they are winning the war, because they have so many youths that are being used as cannon fodder currently. So therefore, unfortunately, as we mark time to the elections in February, I don't see an end in sight to the insurgency. It will only exacerbate instead of abate, quite unfortunately.
And that leads me to want to ask you, so do you think the Abuja should start arming locals as was done in Iraq during the U.S.-led occupation?
I think the U.S. was quite surgical in some of their airstrikes in Iraq. We know so well that the most important leader of Al-Qaeda was Abu Mus'ab al-Zarqawi. He was killed in an airstrike, and a host of others. Even bin Laden was killed in a special operation in Abbottabad in Pakistan. But these people don't spend 2 nights in the same building. They are on the move all the time. And there is a thick forest close to the Cameroonian border called the Sambisa jungle. That is where they hide. So Abubakar Shekau's, appearance in public only takes place after they've, vanquished the Nigerian security forces have been vanquished in any area. So they come in high-level, vehicles. He delivers a tirade of a speech, and then they melt into the rugged terrains of the country. So it becomes very difficult. But we know that already the U.S. has started flying drone surveillance over the Northeast. But the Americans, frankly, I will tell you this in authority, do not side with the way Nigeria is fighting this counterterrorism effort because of the lack of respect for human rights and all that. So for most of the pieces of intelligence information they have been able to garner over the past few months, they've not shared with the Nigerian security forces. And then the soldiers that make up the ranks of the security forces are also ill-prepared. They are not remunerated well. We have a treasure trove of information that sometimes they throw away their AK-47 machine guns, they peel off their military fatigues and put on civilian clothing to run away from Boko Haram. So that tells you that the commitment itself is not there, both politically and militarily, to fight Boko Haram. And that is why the insurgent group of a ragtag army of miscreants feels so emboldened, and it is now capturing territory in Africa's most populous country and most buoyant economy. Quite unfortunate.
Yeah, Herbert, thank you. Let me quickly go to Dr. Nfidan. So do you agree, or you also disagree, that we should not arm the locals in Abuja?
Well, in effect, I think I agree with all that Ibad has said, but let's look at it from a different angle. The point is this, that we have not focused the question of Boko Haram properly within Nigeria, within ECOWAS, within the AU. The fact still remains that at the strategic level, we are fault. Strategic level is where policy towards something is made. And what is the Nigerian policy towards Boko Haram? It's properly not seen, to the extent that the head of state could come out to say that members of his government, some of the members of his government are even in support of Boko Haram. That's scary. Number two, what Ibad was saying was very correct, that the Nigerian military is not properly motivated. So at the operational and even tactical level, we have problems. Not only the motivation, but because Shekau and his group are able to, endear themselves to the people, the military is unable to fight. And that's very bad when morale is loose in a military. If you watch out, the territory of Boko Haram is not just confined to the north, northeast, and the forest. They are able to hit Abuja at will. They hit the police headquarters just to show to the world that the police can't save Nigeria. They hit a UN building there, and they've been hitting several places just to divert attention, as Ibad said. And they are gaining wings. They are growing. They are more resolute. They are tactical and the operational, at the tactical and operational level, they are more sophisticated. What are we doing? The Americans are gathering information, but if they are not able to share that information, what do we do? What is the standby force that has made all the noise about the ECOMOG-like kind of thing? What are we waiting for? Because a broken Nigeria, a shattered Nigeria, is like a dam which has just gotten broken. If Akosombo just splits, you can imagine what will happen. The flash. So if Nigeria breaks now, I tell you, West Africa is in trouble. So what are we waiting for? That is my concern.
Okay.
The religion they are using is just one of the tools. It's one of just the arrows in the quiver. You know, and in war, you use all kinds of everything is a tool for you. They just believe that using the religion will build their cause. And they are succeeded in doing that. There's nowhere, as Ibad said, in the Quran where you would say that in killing innocent people is justified. No. I teach most of these things, and I tell you, we have something like the use of force. When do we use force? And I have instances in the Quran where it's talking exactly about the principles of the use of force. Very interesting in the Quran. There are other places.
Yeah, I wish we could go into that, but our time, unfortunately, has run out. So we won't be able to take any more of that. Thank you so much, Dr. Vladimir Nfidan. So he is a Senior Research Fellow, Legon Center for the International Affairs and Diplomacy, and he has spent his precious time with us on News Desk. We also had Herbert Ibrahim. He is an international news and security analyst. He also joined us to take us through a bit through security implications, what is going on in Togo and in Nigeria. For more news, you can log on to myjoyonline.com and keep yourself updated on whatever is happening around us in Ghana and across our globe. My name once again is Gladys Osei Already. Do join us midday where we bring you up to date, up to the minute stories, news happening around you and around us. Thank you so much for your time here on News Desk.